Yesterday, Sayadaw explained how one can attain jhana Sammaditthi by using samatha vehicle. And Sayadaw explained briefly. And Sayadaw went on to explain on Vipassana Sammaditthi. In order to gain Vipassana Sammaditthi, one has to use Samadhi jhana, concentration vehicle, in order to attain Vipassana Sammaditthi. So Sayadaw explained about Samadhi vehicle. When one has gained Samadhi concentration, one can gain Vipassana Sammaditthi. And today Sayadaw will continue to explain. When practicing Vipassana, one is not taking Paṇḍitā concept as object, but one is observing on the Nama-rupa phenomena that really exist in order to build up Samadhi jhana concentration vehicle to gain Vipassana. So one has to contemplate on the Nama-rupa phenomena that really exist. The whole body is the object of meditation when building Samadhi jhana concentration vehicle. Whatever object that arises, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, bending, stretching, turning, lifting, moving, placing, whatever object that arises, one should be mindful of them. The object that arises at the present moment, one has to note it. Whatever new object arises, one should go on to note it right away, and one will be building Samadhi jhana concentration vehicle. When building Samadhi jhana concentration vehicle by noting every arising object, one needs jhana factors, and also one needs viriya, effort, sati, mindfulness. Without effort and mindfulness, one cannot develop Vipassana. So in Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha taught Kaye Kayanupassi Viharati Atapi Sampajano Satima Vinaya Loke Epecha Domanasa. It means that yogi, who can also be called a bhikkhu, has to contemplate on kaya as kaya. Kaya is the group of material phenomena. So this kaya is made up of group of material phenomena. There is Prithvi, earth element, Apo, water element, and so on. So many particles of these elements, such as Prithvi and Apo, are making up a group of materiality. And in the Prithvi element, in the earth element, there is nature characteristics such as hardness, softness. And in Apo Dhatu, water element, there is nature characteristic of cohesion, fluidity, and so on. So there is group of materiality such as group of Prithvi element, group of earth element, group of water element, and so on. And this group of materiality is made up of small particles and one should be mindful of this group of materiality in the way it really is. The whole body is the object of meditation. Within the body, there is new object arising moment by moment, and one should be observing the new object that arises at the present moment. One should not be contemplating on the whole body as a whole, but within the body there is new object arising. Again, there is new object arising, and one should be noting the present arising object. So one should be observing fresh, new object that is arising at the present moment. And one should be observing this group of materiality as the way it is arising. And if there is this materiality arising, one should not note it as Vedana. Saraji gives an example. If there is a stone, one should note it as it is a stone, and one should not note it's a gold or silver. In the same way, when a group of materiality is arising, one should note it in the way it is. One should label it the way it is arising. So one should make a label according to how it is. When noting rising of the abdomen, when one inhales, rising of the abdomen arises, and one should note it as rising. Actually, rising is just the name, but there is the nature, such as stiffness, tension, movement involved in rising. And this stiffness, tension, movement, it is Vayo Dhatu, air element, wind element. So when we note rising, there are small little particles making up into rising, and this rising actually is stiffness, tension, movement, and so on. When there is falling, this falling is also made up of small particles of movement, relaxation, and so on. So when this group of materiality arises, one should be noting continuously, repeatedly, in the way they are. And in the example of rising, falling, whenever rising, falling arises, one should note them right away by using mental label as rising and falling. Buddha has taught 4 kinds of objects to be noted in Satipatthana meditation. The first group is the group of materiality, and the second one is group of feeling, and the third one is consciousness, and the fourth one is Dhamma, the other general objects. So one should be noting on these 4 objects of meditation. Among these 4, the first one is Kaya, group of materiality. It is mentioned as the first one, and one should start noting from the first one to note the object, which is materiality. Among the 4 objects to be noted, one should give priority to noting the first one, which is materiality. Among two things, mind and matter, mind is more subtle. So between mentality and materiality, mentality is more subtle and materiality is more gross and profound. So that's why one should be noting more on materiality, which is more obvious. There is a saying in Vipassana, saying Yatha Paṭṭaṃ Vipassana Bhiniveso. It means that one should observe the object that is more obvious and profound. So among the nama and rupa, among materiality and mentality, materiality is more obvious and profound. So that's why one should give priority to note materiality, which is more profound, which is more obvious than the mentality. Even among the materiality, there are Mahabhuta, or the four great elements, and also there are derived materiality. Among these two, the four great elements are more obvious and more profound, and the derived materiality is not as profound as the four great elements. That's why one should give priority to note and observe the four great elements. Even among the four great elements, Vayo Dhatu, the wind element, is more profound. The wind element, which has the characteristic of stiffness, tension, movement, it is more profound than the other three great elements. So one should give priority to noting on the wind element, which manifests as stiffness, tension, and movement. So in materiality, there is not only Vayo Dhatu, wind element, but also there are other three great elements involved in this materiality, but it is the Vayo Dhatu which is more profound, which is more prominent. In the example of rising, falling, Vayo Dhatu, the wind element is more prominent, and it manifests as stiffness, tension, movement. So one should be observing the object that is more prominent. Just like in the saying, Yatha Paṭṭaṃ Vipassana Bhiniveso, it means that one should be observing the object which is most prominent, which is most obvious and profound. Sharaji gives an example when learning in school. When a child starts to learn in school, this child should learn lessons which is few and simple. So the kindergarten kid has to start learning from the alphabet A, B, C, D, and the kid must pronounce the alphabet so that the kid can correctly pronounce the word. This is the example given that the yogi must be noting on the object which is more prominent, and the yogi has to start from the object which is few and simple in the beginning of the practice. When a child starts to learn in school, the child is not familiar with the lessons, So the teacher should give the child lessons that are few and easy. The teacher should not be giving lessons that are many, or the teacher should not give difficult lessons. So the lessons should be few and easy so that the child can cope with the lesson. In the same way, in the beginning of the practice, beginner yogi should start noting few objects that are easy to be noted. And here, when noting rising, falling of the abdomen, it is the Vayo Dhatu, wind element, that is prominent. So yogis should start noting from rising and falling of the abdomen in sitting meditation. There is the word anupassi. It means yogi should be observing repeatedly over and over again on the object. One should not be noting just once or a few times only, but one should be noting many times, repeatedly, over and over again on the object. One should make it a habit to note the object repeatedly. And it is said that Atapi Sambhajano Satima. Atapa means ardent effort. Yogis should be noting with ardent effort. One should not be noting in a cold, sluggish, lazy manner, but yogis should be always alert, active, ready to note the object, and yogis should put ardent effort. Atapi means the one who possesses ardent effort. And this Atapi also defines Anupassi, the one who observes repeatedly on the object. Before Saraji explains on the word Satima, Saraji explains the word Sambhajana. Sambhajana means knowing by oneself completely, correctly, and distinctly. There are 4 kinds of Sambhajanya. The first one is Sataka Sambhajanya. Second one is Sappaya Sambhajanya. The third one is Gochara Sambhajanya. The fourth one is Asamoha Sambhajanya. The first one is Sataka Sambhajanya. It means that one should think before one does something, before one talks something, and before one thinks. So before one do, talk, or think, one should reflect whether it is suitable or not, and one should act with prudence. It is very important to reflect before one does, before one talks, and before one thinks, whether it is suitable or not, and whether it is beneficial or not. It is very important. In the beginning of Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha boldly guaranteed that by practicing Satipatthana meditation, one can get benefits such as purification of the mind. And Buddha had guaranteed 7 kinds of benefits by practicing Satipatthana meditation. Practicing Satipatthana meditation is something that is very beneficial. It is not something that is insignificant. Knowing the benefits of Satipatthana practice, one should have faith and confidence in the practice. Before one does something, one should think whether or not it is beneficial. Even if it is beneficial, one should think whether it is suitable or not. And one should also think on the timing, the opportunity. So yogis who are here, they are here to practice Vipassana meditation, which is very beneficial, which has a lot of benefits. It is something that is suitable and it is the correct timing. Yogis are having the opportunity to practice and they have good teachers to guide them. So practicing Vipassana is something that should be done. And if you think in every way, one will know that it is something that should or that must be done. And there is sabbaya sampajanya. One should think of whether it is suitable or not. There should be suitability. Having knowledge that Satipatthana is something beneficial, one will have faith and confidence in the practice. When one has faith and confidence in the practice, one will have a strong will to get the benefits of practice, the benefits such as purification of the mind and so on. Having faith and confidence on Satipatthana meditation, one comes to the meditation center. Coming to the meditation center, one has to leave behind the worldly pleasure. One is courageous enough to leave behind the worldly pleasure to join this retreat. And when coming to this retreat, yogis should be practicing with ardent effort. One must not be practicing in a slow or sluggish or lazy way, but yogis should be practicing full of alertness, full of ardent effort. And when noting the object, yogis should be noting repeatedly over and over again on the object, and one should assert ardent effort. When one asserts ardent effort, mindfulness will be developed. Yogis should be asserting effort in order to note every arising object. When one can assert ardent effort to note every arising object, the noting mind will sink into the object of meditation. Sayadaw gives an example of throwing stone in the water. When the stone is thrown into the water, the stone sinks into the water. In the same way, when the yogi notes the object with effort, the noting mind will sink into the object just as the stone sinks in the water. When the noting mind sinks into the object, sati, mindfulness, has developed. There will be collectedness of mind. The mind will not be agitated. When the mind is calm and collected, samadhi is also developed. When there is samadhi, the mind will not be agitated by kama chanda, sensual desire, or vyavada, ill will, or tina mitta, sloth and torpor. The mind is unshaken by these defilements such as raga, dosa, moha. The mind will be calm and collected. So in the text, this samadhi is not mentioned. It is just said as sampajano satima, that when sati is mentioned, samadhi, concentration, is automatically involved. By practicing with effort, there will be sustained mindfulness. The mind will be calm and collected, and the yogi has developed momentary concentration, khanika samadhi. And when there is sustained mindfulness, there is gochara sampajanya. Yogi will be knowing on the presently arising object. Yogi will be knowing correctly, distinctly, by himself, by herself, and it is called sampajanya. and this is another word defining Anupasana. When one is knowing ordinarily about the object, there will only be Kosara Sampajanya among the four. But when the yogi practices continuously with sustained mindfulness, with effort, then the mind will be calm and collected, and when Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, becomes very strong, yogi will know clearly, correctly the object that has been noted. Yogi will see distinctly, clearly between the object that is noted and the noting mind that is noting the object. And the yogi will see distinctly between cause and effect. When the yogi knows clearly, distinctly, correctly, it is asamoha sambhajanya. There will not be confusion or doubt, that the yogi will know correctly in a very clear-cut manner, and the person will know distinctly between mind and matter, cause and effect, and the person's knowing will be complete, distinct and correct. What the yogi has known is not learned from the book or not learned from what the teacher had taught, but through his or her own experience. Though the knowledge the person has gained is complete, correct, and gained by himself, by herself, and it is called asamoha sambhajanya. And when knowledge has developed, the kind of defilements that can arise by lack of mindfulness will be overcome. Having mindfulness, the defilements such as lobha, greed, or dosa, anger or aversion, has no chance to arise on the object that the yogi had noted. So, abhijja and domanassa, greed and anger or aversion, these two are the strongest among the defilements. When these two strong cannot arise, the other weaker defilements also do not arise. So at the moment of noting, the person momentarily overcomes the defilement. It is called the Danga Pahana, removing the defilement momentarily. And this is the benefit of Satipatthana practice. So Anupasana means knowing correctly by noting the object with sustained mindfulness, with ardent effort. And there will be asamoha sambhajanya. One will be knowing distinctly, correctly, in an extraordinary way by himself, by herself. In order to gain this benefit, one should have faith and confidence on the practice. One should have strong will to gain these benefits. There is sappaya sambhajanya, there is suitability, where one has this opportunity to practice. It is a good timing to practice, where one is still strong and healthy, at good age. So one should be practicing Satipatthana diligently. And when coming to this retreat, yogi had give up the worldly pleasure in order to join the retreat. So it is said, parijaka, one has given up, one has given up the worldly pleasure. Coming to this retreat, practicing diligently, one gains Dhamma pleasure, and it is called parikaha. One gains Dhamma pleasure. It takes courage to give up the worldly pleasure to come to this meditation retreat. One should have effort, courage to come all the way here to meditate. So one has given up, it is called parijaga. One has given up the worldly pleasure. In place of worldly pleasure, one gains Dhamma pleasure through Satipatthana practice. So by doing parijaga, by giving up worldly pleasure, one gains Dhamma pleasure through Satipatthana practice, and it's called parikaha. So the mental strength mentioned as atapi, satima, sampajanyo, it is not enough, but one needs jhana factors in the practice. So it is said that atapi, satima, sampajano, so samadhi is not mentioned, but it is understood that when one applies viriya and sati, kanika samadhi will be automatically developed. And when defining Dhammanupassana, there is explanation about Prathama jhana, Dutiya jhana, and the jhana factors of Vitakka, Vichara, Piti, Sukha, Ekaggata. So, in this text, Adapi, Sampajano, Satima, it is not enough. These mental strengths are not enough. One also needs jhana factors. Among the 5 jhana factors, Vitakka and Vichara, initial application and sustained application, is important to the yogi. In order that the noting mind should be direct with rising and falling of the abdomen, one should aim the noting mind towards this object. Aiming is jhanic factor. And also, one should put effort. When the noting mind rubs onto the object, the noting is effective. Rubbing onto the object, this sustained application is called vichara. And one should apply these 2 factors of vitakka and vichara in the practice. And when the yogi discerns the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self, Vipassana will be developed. It will be Vipassana jhana. And today 1 hour is up. Daraji will continue to explain tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.